This is the CHGO Cubs podcast. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. Brendan, we are coming to you on Sunday, September 1st, and the Cubs have scored 1,000 runs in the last week. I wasn't even sure we were ever going to get on to do this show, Brendan, because we try to pick a time and schedule it to do the live show here on YouTube, and the Cubs just kept scoring, Brendan.
It was the one time where I was annoyed the Cubs would not stop scoring runs. Unbelievable. 99 runs in their last 11 games.
Yeah.
What has gotten into this offense?
Well, we talked about it, Brendan, and so laying out the kind of schedule for today's show, we'll keep a look at the standings and where the Cubs are at. We have turned the corner to September. It is the final stretch here of this season. They are in this race, like for as many times. You love when I bring up the fine world of professional wrestling on this podcast, but this has been, if you're familiar with The Undertaker, that is the 2024 Chicago Cubs. They are dead. Okay. They rise back up. They're dead again. They're back up again. This is the roller coaster ride of the 2024 Chicago Cubs, but there is 1 month left, and they have started this, Brendan. We talked about it. You have 9 games on this schedule left that you kind of have circled. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies. Those are going to be hugely important games. The vast majority of the rest of this schedule, and it's been the case for a couple weeks now already, bad teams. And we looked at it, and even this week, you're thinking it's tough to ask for a sweep. You're on the road. Pittsburgh's falling out of it. Washington's not very good, but asking for them to sweep is tough. It's tough. It's Major League Baseball. And what do the Cubs do? They sweep the week, and they score, as you said, 99 runs in their last, 11 games?
11 games.
They scored 14 runs this week, Brendan, in 2 separate games, and that is not the most runs they scored in a game all week. They scored 18 in Pittsburgh on Monday. This offense decided we are beating bad teams, we are collecting W's, and we are riding into September ready to, F around and find out, I guess.
Are you back? Be honest. Are you back?
I don't know that you or I ever really offered a definitive in or out stance. I feel like
such a cop out. Are you back? Yes or no? Are you back? Yes or no? Be honest.
Listen, man, I'm going to stick with what I've been saying for a long time. And we talk about it. I ate a lot of shit for it in the comments. They've been in this race basically this entire time. And whether that was, now they're several games over 500, at some points they were in the race when they were 5 under. But they've kind of been lingering around this entire time, and it's ratcheted up. So as we're recording this, Brendan, the Braves play Sunday Night Baseball. That's the team that we're all kind of watching. That's the one holding the 3rd wild card spot. Of course, Arizona and San Diego scuffling. Like, it's going to be an interesting month. If you want interesting, like, edge of your seat kind of baseball, like, this is what you're going to get.
Well, there you go. Maybe they can turn the tides from their previous seasons with Milwaukee in 2018, last season, and they're the ones chasing, and they finish up top in September. This is how crazy baseball is, where we can have a podcast episode 2 weeks ago, and the tone changes dramatically just in that span of 2 weeks. That's why with baseball, it's always difficult. And I was, being a little, I was kidding with you with saying that's a cop-out. In all reality, baseball, you can never count things out. That's why when we're talking about the team, we want to be sure that you have a bona fide juggernaut, that we don't have to go through this process. But at the same time, when you're in this type of stretch, weird stuff tends to happen. This is why you build a team to not be at the will of this weird stuff. And perhaps the weirdest part about all of this is, since you and I have done a show together, which is almost literally 10 years now, this is the most runs they've scored in an 11-game span.
Yeah.
Dating back to the Golden Era World Series championships, 3 straight.
What year was that, Brendan?
2016, if you forget about that. 3 consecutive NLCS appearances. This is the best stretch of offense we've seen from this team. It's such a bizarre sport. It's why it's hard to always tap out, and it keeps you interested. And hopefully in September, this weirdness continues.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Brendan, and it does harken back a little bit to last year, where going into that trade deadline, everybody came on, and you kind of put that challenge to the team of like, well, look, like I don't want to write them out, but they're going to have to win basically every game they play from now until the trade deadline. And the Cubs were like, all right, bet, got it, we're going to do that, and we're going to be buyers at the deadline, and they're trying something similar right now. Now, at the same time, like it is still a tough mountain to climb. I don't want to like get too ahead of ourselves, like, and act as though they've covered all the ground.
And they still, like, the percentages right now is a 93% chance of them making that third wildcard team. So you're still in unlikely territory.
They've made it a tough hole to dig out of for themselves,
Yeah.
as we've talked about. And, I know we focused on a little bit last week. Right now, again, Braves and Phillies, Sunday Night Baseball. If you want to get your like scoreboard watching, hate watching kind of in on your Memorial or Labor Day weekend, this weekend here, 3.5 right now. But remember, effectively an extra game because the Braves hold the tiebreaker. The Mets are our friends over at CHGO White Sox. No help this weekend, but that's not Herb and Sean and Vinny's fault. That team is just wretched, but the Mets take care of them. So the Mets stay 2 games ahead of the Cubs. So that's the situation. It's tough. Arizona 2+2, San Diego +2. Those teams I think are playing right now. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on with that there. But that's the general tenor of things. Cubs got to keep winning. That's the point. As fun as this week is, they didn't gain that much ground on the Braves. If the Braves
And that's
win
the
tonight,
annoying part. They're
right,
going through their best stretch, and they have barely made ground.
Yeah, if the Braves win tonight, I think they would have picked up, what, a game and a half? I think it
Yeah.
was 5.5 coming into the
Yeah.
week or something close to that, depending on,
It was 5.5,
Monday or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, so they would have picked up a game and a half, which is great. But when you think of how well the Cubs have been playing, you kind of wish that this week would have like really bridged that gap a little bit more. But I saw it in our YouTube chat earlier. First of all, if you're watching live in the YouTube chat, drop in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. Hit that like button for us. Hit that subscribe button on CHGO Sports YouTube page. If you're listening later, podcast feeds, hello, welcome. Cubs sweep. They've won 6 in a row. They're maybe the best team in baseball history. I'm not really sure. Jury's out.
I mean, the numbers are saying
PCA
that.
might be the best player ever. We will talk about that. I want to dig into PCA more. Want to dig into the 5th rotation spot. Obviously, Jordan Wicks coming back on Sunday. Kyle Hendricks struggling earlier in the week. Javier Assad. There's a lot to talk about, and it will be very interesting. Bullpen roles. I know you specifically kind of want to look at how Craig has been using this bullpen coming into this stretch, how he might use it in September, and also just comparing that, not to draw a line with Craig and David Ross, but the bullpen was
let's draw a line between Craig and David
but
Ross.
The bullpen in particular and its usage was such a key part of the breakdown last year that's going to be something to look at as we go into this last month here. If the Cubs can score 14 to 18 runs a game, maybe the bullpen won't matter that much, but you expect some one-run games here, and that'll be interesting. But what I was going to say is I saw it earlier in the chat. I apologize if I can't find it. But somebody,
see if I can.
It was Shane Newbanks. He said, "Happy Craigtember, everybody." Like now, and I bring that up with that kind of bullpen lead in because now is the time where this is what you're paying Craig Counsell for. High pressure games, every single game under a microscope. Every game is pivotal in these standings. Every little thing has to go right for the Cubs to catch the Atlanta Braves or the San Diego Padres or the Arizona Diamondbacks, whoever. And this is what you brought him in for. He has a pedigree of taking care of business in September, holding on to division leads, making that playoff spot, catching teams. Unfortunately, at certain points, that's been the Chicago Cubs. This time he is at the helm. So let's see what he's got, Brendan. But yeah, that's kind of the general, like, this was quite a week, Brendan. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, they're putting up crooked numbers as if
every day,
literally their job. Like, this is something we have been begging this team to do, not just this year, but it feels like last year too, where like you feel like so much of this year we were talking about runners in scoring position, leaving runners on the base paths, things like that, and getting one run in, but you left another one or two on the base paths because you couldn't just execute situationally. And this week they were like, nah, we're scoring 7 runs. We're going to get a bunch of 2-out hits, like crooked numbers all over the place.
They're doing it in a way that still is relatable and applicable for their future years, especially next year in 2025. The offense we're seeing, as we've been pointed out to in the chat, is not being fully driven by home runs. It's being driven by base hits across the entire lineup for the most part, which means P. Crow-Armstrong is, of course, staying hot. Miguel Amaya keeps driving the ball. Nico Hoerner batting about 350 in his last 50 plate appearances. Dansby Swanson is driving the ball continuously, 4 hits on Sunday. Many of the players, both the stable veterans and the ones that are going through the system and trying to cement their role, are performing well. Last year, we wanted Nico to finish strong. We wanted Dansby Swanson to get beyond some of the slumps we saw in this August and September. This year, it's different because the offense is performing, but part of the offense is from pre-arbitration players. That wasn't happening last year. This is more fun because you have implications for 2025 and you're seeing them compete in a playoff scenario right now. It's two perspectives. One is you want to make the playoffs, but two, continue watching these guys develop before our eyes, because it changes how the front office proceeds in the offseason. So it's not just, oh, the offense is doing great, I'm happy, yada, yada, yada. It's the offense is doing great because it has implications for the offseason and next season.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked a lot about PCA last week, and I'm sure we'll talk about him, a little more this week and in this episode, but we did a lot kind of in depth last week. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, we've been texting each other. Like, I've been talking to Cody. I saw our guy Cody Del Mendo yesterday, and like it's one of those things where it has gone from, okay, be patient. He's 22. Like, you got to be patient, etc. To, okay, he's like showing some signs. It's clicking a little bit, and like you find yourself like throughout the course of this week going like, is he gonna be the best player in the league? Is he an 8-win player? Like, what are we talking about?
The question, we'll do the ad break here in 2 minutes, but just to center on that, because we did talk extensively about him, but a 15% strikeout rate in his last 100 plate appearances. That's incredible. Greg Huss, our good friend Greg Huss, pointed out that he never had a stretch like that in the minors where he was not striking out at that low of a rate. That's why it gives me confidence for PCA going forward, because he's doing this, making these adjustments, not at AAA or AA, but in the big leagues, in a pennant chase, so to speak. Don't get the words twisted, but in meaningful games that require his offense as a 22-year-old. It's incredibly impressive, and that's following significant mechanical changes in the same light as what we saw Miguel Amaya change mechanically as well. Those are so encouraging and reflective of the process for those young guys going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an incredible stretch.
I'm like
and of
borderline
course,
speechless what we're seeing. I know we always talk about baseball as like unpredictable, but it's always crazy to see it play out in such extreme forms like this. Like, you snap your fingers and all of a sudden they're scoring 100 runs in a week and a half.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's
and you watch some of these games and like I feel like you have a completely different confidence in them.
It's
I
like,
think
oh,
there
they didn't
was so
score 10
many.
runs today. What's wrong?
Yeah, like and there was just so many moments earlier in the year you would look at them with the bases loaded and no outs or 1 out and think they're going to find a way to screw this up.
Yeah,
Like, the second guy's
for
going to
sure.
strike out, the third guy will fly out, and they're not going to get any runs. Now you kind of watch these games and you have a lot more confidence. Like, nah, they're going to come through. Like, that Dansby's going to get this hit. Like, Saya's going to get this guy in. Like, the whole lineup, you're feeling more confident in.
And like, I'll do the ad break here, by the way, but one last point. Cody Bellinger is among the least productive hitters in this stretch. His last 53 plate appearances going into today, only batting 204 with 1 home run at 274 WOBA. So their middle of the order bat is not producing, and they're scoring historically a high number of runs. It's crazy this is happening. It's
Yeah.
truly nuts. Okay.
Let's
Let me do the ad break
we're gonna
here.
take a break
I'm
from
gonna
our
get ahead of
sponsors here.
myself.
Yes,
Yep.
and we'll be back in a second.
All right. First ad break here is from Circa. Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois, high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite sports teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game, Circa Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Penrose Brewing, Geneva, Illinois. Beautiful Geneva, Illinois. Seltz Up, hard seltzers with real fruit, led by Lemon Seltz Up, a national gold medal winning hard seltzer with real lemons. They created our unique twist on a lemon shake-up with a house-made hard seltzer and pureed lemons for a throwback to warm weather and county fairs. Also available is Lemon Tea Up, a half and half inspired hard seltzer. And just released this year is Transfusion Seltz Up, inspired by a popular golf cocktail with grape, ginger, and lime. Penrose is available at your local beverage retailer or visit Penrose's taproom in Geneva. And for more information, go to penrosebrewing.com or follow them on social media at Penrose Brewing.
All right, Brendan, back with you here. And I was going to ask you, like, also, one thing that we hadn't even touched on yet, you see the value, and, do I expect this to continue? I do not,
Yes,
but it's been nice.
you do.
Like, the value of someone like Christian Betancourt performing the way that he is. And obviously, you look at the
Oh, you
numbers.
like 7 RBIs in one
Yes.
game?
Like, obviously, you look at those
Crazy.
numbers, of course, that matters. But so much of the year, and this was also true last year, we focused so much on how the back end of the lineup felt like just 3 automatic outs for so many games over the last few years. And earlier in the year, Yan Gomes struggling. You had Miguel Amaya struggling mightily when the season began, and kind of his early season adjustments. And so, of course, Betancourt has been unbelievable. But even just getting some production out of that bottom of the order, the way that it completely transforms the lineup. And you mentioned it, like with Cody Bellinger not performing as much. You texted me earlier, Michael Busch's numbers have not been great over his last recent stretch. You need those other guys to pick you up. And that was one of the concerns with the way the roster was built, was like, hey, if Cody Bellinger is not that exact same guy, who's going to pick it up? Where's the offense coming from? And even if it's not sustainable,
Which is, it's not.
Of course. But even to get that stretch from Miguel Amaya, or this small sample from Christian Betancourt, PCA playing out of his mind, Dansby hitting better, coming around, it seems obvious to say, but when we spend so much time talking about it, like finally seeing it, it's like, hallelujah, man. Like, you need guys to produce. You cannot have a 7, 8, 9. And sometimes it felt like it was 6, 7, 8, 9, where you're just like, yeah, these guys are not going to contribute. They're not going to produce. And so many of these games where they've scored these big crooked numbers, it's been buoyed almost entirely by the bottom of the order. So it's just been amazing to see, and why we kind of like harp on that so much throughout the last couple seasons, because it's a killer. When you don't have those stars at the top of the offense that just carry you every single night, no question, every now and again, these unsung heroes maybe need to step up. And I was like talking to some people on Twitter. I saw these discussions like, do you think like by the end of the year, we'll look at Christian Betancourt? Is he like a Sean
Easy answer.
Estes type, like a 2003 Sean Estes? Like, that guy 20 years from now will be like, oh man, remember that like August and September from Christian Betancourt? Save the season.
I remember Sean Estes. There's a picture, and you can probably find it on Google. He's like hanging over the Cincinnati bullpen, and there's a score in the back. And that was right before the Cubs won the division, I believe, the series before. Maybe he's that guy, but it is nice to be on the receiving end of good extremes. We've talked for the past 2 years about realistic expectations. realistic expectations for PCA, for Nico Hoerner, for Dansby Swanson, Miguel Amaya, what we're seeing is a level beyond those expectations. It's useful to talk about what to expect because it sets the stage for why this is so impressive. It sets the stage for why PCA's numbers have been the best on the team and why that's so impressive. Over his last 50 plate appearances going into today, which he had more base hits today, he's batting nearly 400. We talk about Miguel Amaya in his last 35 plate appearances, batting almost 500. These are insane numbers. This is not like 250 with 2 home runs. He's getting a base hit in nearly half of his at-bats. We see Nico Hoerner looking like the guy we saw from last year. There's been discourse about Nico and Dansby's lack of offense, which I understand. Maybe we can get into it later in this episode or perhaps in future episodes. But the process that they've been showing has generally been the same. And now that process, which typically has yielded results in years past, is now yielding results now. Didn't yield results earlier. That's just how baseball works. But to have Dansby Swanson have 3 home runs in his last 48 plate appearances with 4 base hits today is reflective of a stable process. And that gives me confidence going forward, both in September and throughout the offseason, entering next season, that he's still that guy, that fast, twitchy, athletic shortstop with high offense and power output if that stays the same. So just to put this into perspective, we've talked for the entire year now about a narrow range of expectations. And over the last 2 weeks, we're seeing those range of expectations now expand. They're being expanded. PCA's potential values being expanded, Amaya, etc. And it opens up new conversation points that you and I have been desperately hoping we can talk about. That's why this is so encouraging.
Yeah, man. Why, like, I am a little speechless. I'm not going to lie to you. And
I'm
I'm
a little
looking at,
speechless too.
now,
I hope this doesn't come off as being like, oh, they're back and everything. It's really not
no,
like that. Like again, they have a 93% chance of making the playoffs. But
missing.
of missing the playoffs. That'd
Yeah,
be great if they were making the
I'm like,
playoffs.
wow.
Maybe I am losing my mind.
Yeah,
Maybe I am going delusional. I've been talking to Cody
it
too
was a
much.
Freudian slip. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the people who are producing the runs because again, it expands the range of possibilities. And that's why this is so fun and exciting to watch, regardless of playoff
Well, and
possibilities.
I think, again, it's not it's not going full in like they're back, or being over the top in terms of what it is. And we talked about this last week. Like, in a better year for the National League, none of this matters. They're playing out of their minds, but they're 9 games out of a wild card spot, and it doesn't matter. In other years, they're easily walking in. Like, it feels like this year is going to be a better number than last year at 84 to get in the playoffs. It feels like it's going to be higher than that from whoever gets that 3rd spot.
Right
So
now it's 89.
yeah, I mean, it changes year to year. So but it is to say, I feel like you and I, and really, I think the whole CHGO Cubs crew was pretty on board that, like, at this team's worst, they were not that bad. And we called and sort of, like, in so much as podcasters can, like, a call to
Call for
action.
action because they
Yeah.
listen to you over
To
there in your Pearl
no,
Jam sweatshirt and your John Lester jersey in
they
the back.
definitely do not. But kind of putting it to, like, Dansby, Cody, like, these guys have to play to their expectations. Like, don't get it twisted, like, what's happening here. They're not this bad. But at the same time, like, these guys have got to perform. Is it Jed? Is it Craig? Is it the play? And sometimes it's all of the things. But also, like, the players need to go and do their job. And, like, as you're seeing this, like, some guys are overperforming, and certainly not in a sustainable way, but, like, you're finally getting some of that production from some of these guys. So are
Yeah.
they great all of a sudden because they cleaned house against the Pirates and Nationals? No, but they weren't as bad as some of those stretches. And we talked about it a lot too, about how disappointing it was that they played such sloppy baseball for so many games earlier in the year, giving away those leads, bad base running, bad defense. And they've cleaned that up almost entirely, Brendan. They really don't blow leads anymore. They have really solidified
They
those
have the
bullpen
best
roles,
bullpen in the world,
which
correct?
we'll
Yes.
talk about.
Yeah.
They play excellent defense for the most part, not perfect, but excellent defense. They're finally getting like some defense out of their catcher position in terms of like not everybody in the world just stealing bases on
Yeah,
them with,
Bethencourt has a
impunity.
cannon.
And you're finally getting some of that offensive production from some of these guys who were performing at such low rates, like relative to their career, even if they're not performing great. Like Dansby's not having a great offensive season, but he was at like a 60 WRC plus. That is far below anything he's done.
Yeah.
And again, it pairs with the bottom of the order coming together too, the catcher position, PCA, etc. Like they're playing better baseball. Are they back? No, but they weren't as bad as that deepest valley, and they're not as good as this particular peak. But they're leveling out a little bit. They've ironed some stuff out. And the question here, Brendan, is do they have enough time to dig themselves out of this hole? If they're able to continue playing like this, lock in these roles, continue progressing the way that they have, as they've been fine-tuning everything as this season has gone on, is this last month enough time to make up that ground on whoever is in that wild card race in this hole that you dug yourself, 2-3 months ago?
It's going to be random either way. You can't say one way or the other. It's likely not going to happen. Again, don't get it twisted. It's likely not going to happen.
Very nihilistic approach from you. Doesn't matter.
Look at my smile on my
None
face.
of this
I'm
matters.
still
We'll
somehow,
see.
none of this matters. But
Maybe
I
they
do
win,
want
maybe
to
they lose. I don't know.
but I do want to touch on, let's just do it now before the ad break. But I do want to touch on the Nico and Dansby discourse. We see it all the time. The vitriol with Dansby Swanson. The reason is he's making the most money on the team from a positional standpoint, and he's asserted himself into a point of leadership, talking at Cubs Con about bringing Belly back, the interactions with the front office of talking with them to improve the team. Yet at the same time, he's been a below league average offensive producer. So that's going to draw the ire of fans because it doesn't reflect what he wants to be. We've talked about process and what to expect, and we need results. But the process for Dansby and Nico and the type of results they can control has been generally the same as last season. I think it's really important to notice that league-wide offense is down. Last year, the average league weighted on base average was 318. This year is 310. It's down a significant amount. There's two reasons for that. One is different baseballs. Two is different strategy a year into the shift. And three is just maybe better pitching stuff. But the expected numbers, which we're not going to dive and use that as the principal talking point, but the batted ball profiles from Dansby and Nico is essentially identical from last year. And from Nico's point of view, his batted ball profile has been the exact same since 2021. So if someone does the same thing over and over and over again, you're not going to get the exact same results over and over again in baseball. My thing is I want the players to control what they can control. And eventually some years you bat 300, some balls fall in your way and the stats look better. For Dansby, sometimes those deep fly balls don't get doubles at the wall. They end up going over the fence because it's 3 degrees hotter and slightly more humid that day. When we talk about those guys, it has to be under the context of what the underlying performance is. Are they not hitting the ball hard? Are they swinging and missing more? Are they swinging at poorer pitches? And that's not the case. So to get on them because they're not getting more bases fallen is really a lack of nuance, I think. If you really want to explore the reasons for it, then looking at those under the hood numbers, whatever you want to call it, is telling the better story, I think.
Yeah, well, and look, I think, overall on the year, if you look, Dansby's got a 677 OPS on the season. That's not great. It's not where he wants it to be. And I think if you're looking at the full picture, you'd look at it and say it's an underwhelming year. It's a disappointing year on offense. But like in contrast to last year, a lot of people got on him as well because he didn't perform as well offensively down the stretch. But look, it was a struggle earlier in the year, and that's what I was talking about with the kind of like call to action, like jokingly, like all you can hope is that they play better from that point. You can't, if a guy starts the season with a 500 OPS for the first 2 months, you can't erase that. That's just what happens. All you can hope is that they play better from that point. And hopefully Dansby can continue this going to September. But you look, last 30 games, he's got an 818 OPS. Last 15 games, 870 OPS. Last 7 games, just the last week, it's over 1,000. Like, this team is trying to claw back in it.
Yeah.
Part of the reason the hole was part of his offense, the bullpen, other people's offense. But lately, this last stretch, he's turned it on. He's performing. He's performing well for this offense. All you can hope is that he finishes that way. And if he keeps on this stretch with the way that he's hitting, his OPS probably finished the season a bit over 700, like pretty in line with who he is as a performer generally throughout his career. So
broad brushstrokes this season, expected weight on base average over 330. Last season was 345. It was better than his 2022 free agent season when he had an expected WOBA of 337. Don't get this twisted. These are all decibel numbers. Expected numbers all have some error in it, but it just, again, broad strokes, he's hitting the ball the same as he's done in years past that generated results. If that keeps happening, you're probably going to see results come. That's the point.
Sort of the thing last year. It's like, it's kind of the Dansby Swanson experience. Like, I think a lot of people hadn't just too high of an expectation of what his offense was. Unbelievable defender. They're turning beautiful double plays. Defense is tightened up, and he's hitting down the stretch here. You got to hope it continues. So, want to take this second ad break here. And when we come back after this ad break, I want to talk about starting pitching, bullpen, and kind of what that looks like going to September. But quick break from our sponsors here.
Sunnyside. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer entering fall. One-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary with locations in the city from Wrigleyville and River North to the suburbs in Champaign, South Beloit, and more. If you're just starting out, Sunnyside is expert guidance and brands we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. And if you're a pro, we've got you covered with over 100 strains on the menu and new ones added weekly. We know you'll love Cresco and Florical's incredible quality and consistent products. Visit Sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases if you enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions do apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and over or Illinois medical card holders. This season, get ready for the upcoming playoff stretch with high-quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your team's favorite colors. Maybe you want some blue and red shades. Shady Rays has you covered. I wear Shady Rays to keep my eyes protected from the daily sunshine that I see over here. I love their light brown shades. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
All right, Brendan. We are back with you, Sunday edition of the CHGO Cubs podcast, and I want to talk about the pitching because obviously the offense was the story. But before I transition to the pitching, I was looking at he used to work for NBC, but now he works for Marquee. Christopher Kamka, a great follow on Twitter. C Kamka. I apologize. I'm not sure.
You can't say names anyway.
I can't. Neither can you.
Know.
Come on.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. But great statistics. One of the better Chicago baseball follows on Twitter. Over their last 10 games, the Cubs have scored at least 3 runs in an inning 14 times. That's what I was talking about, Brendan. I mean, that stat alone, if you read that to me 2 months ago, I would have said you were insane. I was like, this team can't drive a runner in from third with no outs if their lives depended on it. 3 runs in an inning 14 times in a 10-game stretch. So I'm talking about with the crooked numbers. And that's what was so missing early in the year. All those starts where like Shota or Justin Steele were going into the 6th or 7th inning, perfect basically with 7 Ks, but it's 1-0 because the Cubs could barely scratch across the run.
Dark days.
And then the bullpens blew it. That's what was missing. Those extra runs, that extra hit, that big crooked number that just gives the pitching staff that little bit of space that they were missing. So they've been doing it, dude. And there was one more that I was trying to find.
You lost it. I can tell by your eyes. You lost
I
it.
did. Yeah. I'm like scrolling the Twitter.
I'm such an amateur over here.
Oh, sorry. Here it is.
Here it is.
10 plus runs in a game for the Cubs this season, 4 times in the first 127 games of the season, 5 times in the last 10 games.
Oh, this is such a ridiculous
just a flip of a switch.
Why do we watch this?
You always say this, like baseball is
so
really stupid,
it's so stupid.
Like this is one of those things. It's like a team. You read that to our YouTube chat 3 months ago, they would have said, "Yeah, right." Like, yeah, right.
Well, I would have said, "Yeah, right," too. I would have been right there with them.
Tell me more about that stuff. Like what are you guys on? Like, anyway.
I'm gonna get ripped for that Dansby segment. I already know I am. I've been thinking about it.
I think we're pretty fair on Dansby. Like, he is who he is. I always say this. Like, when the Braves won the World Series, he was their 9 hitter.
Yeah.
Like,
and when they win it this year, he'll be batting 7th
or 2nd, like he was. Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know. I do want to transition to the pitching though, because it's easy to focus on the offense. But the starting pitching, as it has been for this entire year, with the occasional blip and bump in the road for certain guys, really good, especially this weekend. Shota Imanaga on Friday, 6 strong, 4 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. Another quality start for Shota. 3.14 ERA on the season. Just continues a really remarkable rookie season coming over from Japan. Then Javier Assad, great start from Javier Assad on Saturday. 6 strong. It's another quality start. 8 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. And then on his birthday, coming back into the Cubs rotation, Jordan Wicks on Sunday. 5 strong, 4 hits, just 1 earned run. No walks, no Ks. But from a visual standpoint, I thought he looked pretty good, Brendan. I thought a lot of the misses were out of the zone. And I think he'd like that to tighten up. A few of them felt a little non-competitive when he was missing, just didn't have the feel on some of those pitches, but you'd rather that than the ball leaking over the middle of the plate. And he was able to get a lot of kind of off the end of the bat swings. There was one inning where I feel like every swing was off the end of the bat, like dribbling in front of the plate or dribbling foul. So he's clearly keeping hitters off balance. And it begs the question, obviously Kyle Hendricks has been all over the place this season. But you look at this final stretch here, like, how do you want to see the Cubs kind of line up this rotation? What'd you see from Assad on Saturday, Wicks from Sunday? Do you keep trotting Kyle out there and risk kind of what we saw the other day again? Do you lean on these guys? How do you think Craig goes about this? And then we'll kind of get into the bullpen and how maybe that's going to get managed as well.
Yeah, I think it works its way out. I don't feel as if there's an obvious choice going forward. The numbers right now suggest Kyle's going to get skipped, maybe 1 time, twice, perhaps. We'll see how they iron out the rotation with Wicks coming back today and maybe having to move back some certain pitchers, but it's going to iron itself out. And I have confidence Craig is going to figure this out. If it were me, I would just go with the recency. I would probably skip Kyle. I would keep Assad in that rotation for now and then play it by ear, more or less. I think we're going to see significant innings from both those guys, whenever role it is. There is one point, a different perspective where you do have to consider the effect of going back and forth from the bullpen to the rotation. For instance, if Kyle has more difficulty doing that than Assad, then it might make more sense to use Kyle as a starter, or rather a better term is opener, where he pitches maybe a few innings, but fewer than you would see from a normal starting outing. And then you piggyback, let's say, with Assad that day, or you piggyback with maybe someone like Keegan Thompson if he performs better. That's kind of an extreme type of a scenario, but I do believe it ends up working out. And I think we're going to see Assad probably get the first shot at it, but it's dependent on Kyle's ability to go in and out of the bullpen if he can. Some guys can't. Stroman could not do that last year.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I would be riding that main five, and Kyle wouldn't be in it. I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying in terms of like positioning the roster and all that other stuff, but you and I think have been on the same page mostly with Kyle, and I think Luke was on this for a while as well. Like I understood when you passionately were kind of like, don't talk about cutting him after 3 starts. Like, he can serve a value to this team. Guys are going to get hurt. You need veterans that can make those starts, eat innings, things like that. But I think we're just at the point where it's too hit or miss. These games are too important, and I would be riding these guys. Like, Assad looks really good. Wicks looks really good. They've both either been in the bullpen or been injured or been out, that I think they have the gas in the tank to kind of make these last few starts. And I would just be riding that. I think I love Kyle Hendricks to death. And I think if he can be effective out of the bullpen, we've seen them try that already. If you need a long relief man or someone to eat up innings, whatever, but I don't think I would be starting him too much anymore. Especially against, like teams, the Pirates, like a lot of those guys have seen him a lot over the years. They're pretty familiar with him. Like, I don't have the confidence in it right now. But this is also, again, you bring up the situation where, is he opening games, things like that. I do think that's one of those areas where, like, I'm going to defer to Craig. I know there are a lot of people like that had some really weird takes about Craig Counsell, like a couple months ago, like using a 3-month sample of a bad Cubs team to outweigh like years of him being regarded as one of the best managers in the league. And like, I certainly never veered off of that course. I know you didn't either, but it got weird out there, Brendan, like with some of that discourse. That's an area where, like, I'm deferring to him. I trust that Craig knows how to move these chess pieces to get the most out of this. And he talks about it a lot, like making that kind of plan to get those 27 outs. And it's not always black and white in a lot of ways. Guy doesn't have to be a true starter. Guy doesn't have to be a true reliever. Like, they're not out there trying to go 5 innings for the win or 6 innings for a quality start. They are trying to piece a puzzle together that is 27 outs. Here's our pitchers. Here's the 27 outs. How do we get them? And
Exactly.
one of the reasons they went and got Craig Counsell,
Was
I
to
believe
figure
this
out.
clearly they believe this, is that he has a reputation for being the best in the game at solving that
Yes.
particular puzzle.
This is September, 1 month of baseball. The roles we're talking about are not the same roles we've been discussing for the past 5 months. A starter versus an opener versus a long reliever starts to blend at this point. So the question Craig has to answer is, what is the best chance to get maximum value out of Assad and Hendricks as a combined unit? That is what we're going to see answered in the next few weeks. And just to put this into perspective, we were talking about this basically throughout the offseason, and more pointedly today, the usage of the bullpen by David Ross last year. And it's very detail oriented, but last season in August, we saw a highly taxed bullpen precede a September collapse from the same bullpen in the form of injuries. Most of those guys were injured and they did not perform well. So last season in 2023 in August, we had the following innings totals from the bullpen. So most of those guys threw 15 innings pitched. Specifically, Merriweather, 15 innings pitched last year in August. Wisniewski, 15. ALLCITY 15, Leiter 13, and Quas 13. In August, context different. They did score more runs, so it's not apples to apples or peaches to roses, whatever it is. But Pearson has led the Cubs in innings in August with only 14. The next guy on that list is Tyson Miller, 13, who, by the way, took 1 week off of pitching not too long ago. So there's Craig, fiddling the chess pieces, so to speak. Porter Hodge, 13 innings pitched. Drew Smiley, more of a long relief role, 11 innings pitched. And then Jorge Lopez, who just had a groin, concern, if you want to call it that. He's back pitching, only 10 innings pitched. So in contrast, most of the bullpen threw 13, 14, 15 innings last season in August. This year, only one guy is above 13 innings in that bullpen. So this is where the chess pieces get moved around. And again, different offensive output. So it's not a fair comparison, but it does speak to the importance of spacing out those innings in crucial ways. That way, come the second, third, fourth week in September, guys aren't taxed like what happened in 2023.
Yeah, it's going to be rather interesting. But I do feel more confident in this group, and it's weird because it's been like slowly pieced together as this season has gone along. But we've been highlighting it for a little while here. Like, Tyson Miller has been unbelievable since he's come over in that trade with
He's been
Seattle.
the most stable reliever in the bullpen all year.
So good. Just
so
absolutely reliable and lights out. Jorge Lopez. I mean, I don't even know what to
He's
say
nasty
about that move. And I feel like because he's been so good, like we don't have to go back and relitigate it, but his exit from the Mets was so weird and like tumultuous. And then he comes over and is the best reliever like in the Cubs bullpen.
Yeah,
like it's
like
nothing.
Closer.
It's amazing. I mean, it's truly.
Well, look
like,
at Pearson too. Same thing. Comes on over, former top prospect, high draft pick, guy with starting aspirations. And right now, over the past month, he leads the Cubs in like run prevention and innings. Basically, he has a 1.9 ERA in 14 innings. I mean, it's crazy to see how immediate the impact is.
Yeah. And it's Porter Hodge. I mean, we didn't even mention, Porter Hodge in that last group, just filthy, absolutely filthy. It's a testament to the patience of the pitching staff and the pitching coaches and Craig Counsell and the diligence to work through this. It's, again, of course, very frustrating that it took so long and that it took a scenario. A lot of people came into the season and felt they didn't do enough in the bullpen and you blew a lot of games. And so it's frustrating that in order to get to that point, you blew a lot of games that obviously we're looking at the standings here going like, well, this
don't
might
get it
be the reason,
Don't get it twisted. Like that process that resulted in such bad relief outings needs to be revised somehow.
Yeah,
don't get
absolutely.
that twisted.
Yeah, don't get that twisted. Like they came in with a bad plan.
It did not
for the
work.
bullpen, and it didn't work. But at the same time, you have to give them credit. You can deride them and give them credit at the same time. That's how this works. They're going to make good moves. They're going to make bad moves. They're going to make great moves. It can all happen at the same time. We'd like them to hit more than they miss. They missed at the beginning of the year, but they have committed to fixing it. They've given their own young guys opportunities, and they've identified available options for basically no cost across the league, integrated them into their system, and gotten really good results out of it. And so I give them credit for that. Is it going to be too little too late? Maybe. The odds say probably, but hey, they've made some progress, and I give them credit for that. Tyson Miller, like that's a great trade. The Pearson pickup, great pickup. The Lopez shot, a great one.
And specifically, the changes they made are not just like they sign them and they have success. They sign these guys, made a small minor tweak, and the success immediately followed. Specifically, Pearson, they moved him on the rubber. And now he's getting success. Tyson Miller, a slower breaking pitch that he can use and had instant success. Porter Hodge comes up, that walk rate of nearly 7 batters per game has now shrunk to almost 3 batters per game. Changes, immediate changes. So it's not just, oh, assign them and see what happens. It's sign the guys, have cohesiveness with scouts, coaches, and the front office executives to get the results. And so that process, again, did not work earlier in the year. And of course, people are going to fail. They're not going to succeed all the time. That requires changing that, figuring out why that did not work. But when what follows ends up working, it does make you more encouraged that they have done that. And going forward, they will continue to do that and limit the bad outings that we saw early in the season.
Yeah, and so I saw our guy Cody Delmendo in the chat, pointing it out. Like a key to last year was, the failing health of some of those guys, and as you pointed out, looking through those kind of innings, the usage. A key part of last year was they had that core group, the group that got them there, as was sort of famously stated, and they rode them, and they rode them quite literally into the ground in terms of their performance and injuries. Like they had a group, they trusted them, they pitched them every night, every save opportunity, every inning, and it got them so far, but not far enough. The difference we're seeing this year and with Counsell is he's spreading it out, as you pointed out. The health still has to be there. You need these guys to be healthy, and it's going to be a big opportunity and a big test for some of these guys. Like, can Porter Hodge be an elite reliever in a pennant race in high leverage innings
with more innings than he's thrown before in his career?
Yeah, that's a huge question mark. I can't tell you. Obviously, you watch him. I have all the confidence in the world that he's out
nasty,
there, but
man.
this is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Can Tyson Miller stay this consistent from the minute he has showed up here to the end of this season? Jorge Lopez, like all these questions. Drew Smiley's getting into the mix. Keegan Thompson's in the mix. Like, can these guys stay healthy? Can they stay effective? And like, we feel like the bullpen has kind of found itself and it's shored itself up. And these guys have like carved out these roles. But this is, of course, the real test. A packed 40,000 plus beautiful historic Wrigley Field, the season on the line.
Weather.
Can you get those 3 outs, and it's coming up here, like with Aaron Judge at the plate as the tying run in the 9th inning.
Well,
like
come on. What are you doing there? I don't want to think about that.
And then Porter Hodge strikes him out. That's
okay,
the hypothetical.
I'll think
imagine the
that.
moment.
I don't like that moment. I'm not a big drama guy. I want 15-0 wins like we've seen. This has been the happiest I've ever been in 10 years, I think, ever since.
These are easy to watch. Yeah, let me tell you. I mean, when they're scoring 14 runs, it's pretty easy.
I'm having the time of my life over here.
Pirates and the Nationals are kicking the ball all over the place. It's great.
Man, the Nationals defense, that was bad today.
Yeah, but just to finish my thought, and then I'll give it back to you. Like this is where I trust Craig Counsell. And again, it's not to like go back to David Ross or find an occasion to talk negatively about David Ross, but I trust Craig's ability to look at that group of relievers and understand, who has this experience, who doesn't have this experience. Do I need to use this guy tonight? Because I might need those bullets tomorrow. Am I running this guy out to a point that he's becoming ineffective? I just trust him to get this right. And I don't think that David Ross did. And we'll see. It's a different roster.
I don't think
it's a different season, but I just, maybe to a fault. He's not perfect. He's not infallible, but this is what Craig Counsell's reputation has been made on. And we watched it for so many years with the Brewers. So many of those guys coming out of that bullpen that weren't just Devin Williams or Josh Hader, where you'd say, how does this guy get us out every single time? Who is this guy, and why can we never hit him? Their defense is always set up perfect. Like, they just got it done. And I just have the confidence in Craig to look at this group, understand their strengths and limitations, and find a way to get us through this 1 month of baseball with this group.
The top 3 guys in terms of highest leverage, I presume, are Tyson Miller, Porter Hodge, Jorge Lopez. If those 3 somehow falter or take a step back, you're starting to see the pieces shape up to fill those roles. So we have Keegan Thompson got a save over the past week. We have now Ethan Roberts getting opportunities with that 20-inch plus sweeper. I imagine those guys likely won't get high leverage opportunities, but if the top three guys falter, you never know. We saw Sean Armstrong get signed off waivers previously from Tampa Bay to fill that void. By the way, 9 K per 9, 3 walk per 9, Sean Armstrong. Those are pretty good peripherals. Then you have Daniel Palencia, who's thrown 102, 103. He was optioned for Sean. I can't say Sean Armstrong. That's like a tongue twister for me. But we have Daniel Palencia, who's optioned for Armstrong. And then you start thinking about, okay, well, what do you do with Assad and Hendricks on those bulk inning roles? Maybe you can bridge those lower innings to the late inning guys. Jack Neely acquired for Mark Leiter, Merriweather on the IL, but could come back. And then you have guys who are on the 40-man like Arias and Killian. Arias probably won't get opportunities, but you just never know with the bullpen health. There's options there. Whereas last season in September, it felt thin. It felt thin when ALLCITY went down and when Fulmer went down. That's why we had Stroman coming out of the bullpen with Smiley and Wisniewski in Arizona during the crucial series. I don't think it's likely we see that happen again, just because we have a high volume of guys. And that is what gives me some encouragement, but it's not stable. You don't have that bona fide back end closer. And with Jorge Lopez's groin injury, it does introduce some question marks. But if everyone's healthy and if they're clicking, this does seem to be manageable, especially for someone like Craig's pedigree.
Yep. It'll be interesting. All right, folks, we are going to wrap up here, but we will do so a little table setting. Here's what we got. Month of September. This is it. So as we record this, the Diamondbacks are blowing out the LA Dodgers. The Padres beat the Rays 4-3. So both of those teams win today.
Great.
So San Diego +2.5, Arizona, not right now, but will be 2.5. I mean, I guess the Dodgers could come back.
So what is that, 6.5 behind the above the Cubs?
5.
Can you do math?
Sorry, 6.
Okay, 6. Yeah, 6.
2.5 plus for both of those teams. Then the Braves in the third spot. The Mets are 1.5 games behind the Braves. The Cubs are 3.5 behind the Braves. So 2 behind the Mets.
And if the Braves win tonight, then they're still 4 games back.
And the Cubs don't own these tiebreakers. So you have to add that extra game.
Well, when you just don't lose games, it doesn't matter. So
That's
you just
true.
win the next 25 in a row. And then,
So that is the state of affairs. This week, the Cubs 3 against the Pirates at home, off day on Thursday, and then they welcome Anthony Vincent Rizzo and the New York Yankees. I got to tell you, Brendan, this season, it's tense. I don't know if I can handle that. It's a lot going on at once. Like, they got to win this game. Anthony's here. That's a lot to deal with on Friday. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have the
mental fortitude.
I can't do both. You know, like it's a playoff race. Anthony's back.
Just put your headphones in the entire time. Just be in your own little zone.
And then 3 on the road in LA. Feels like a pivotal stretch, Brendan. You got to keep cleaning up against the Pirates. You're back at home. You just took care of business
in series.
In PNC. You got to keep that rolling. I know the Pirates are able to roll out some tough pitchers, but you're at home and you got 6 really tough games coming up, especially because after you finish that Yankee series at home, you got to fly to LA and play the Dodgers. That's tough. That's going to be, it feels like those 6 games are kind of the all right, you're showing something here. You're showing fight. You're showing heart. Your offense is showing out. But what do you really have in you for this playoff race?
So you try to hype them up over there.
A lot of bad teams and the Phillies to finish the season. So 1 month, the Cubs are in it. It's still a big hole to dig out of. But hey, at the beginning of the year, we want interesting baseball. We want the Cubs in there. This year has not gone how we all like or how we'd all really, truly hope. But they're in it. Let's see if they can take it to the finish line and pull something off that's pretty crazy. So Brendan and I will talk to you next week. Don't forget to join Luke, Cody, Ryan. Check out Ryan and Jared's writing at allchgo.com. They'll have you post games throughout the week. We appreciate your support. Brendan and I will talk to you next week. And as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.